Hi there, I'm Mark Lonergan. I'm the Artistic Director of Parallel Exit. Welcome to...
Melvin.
Here's my trusty assistant.
Everett.
Thanks, Everett. This episode, we are going to learn all about Cirque Mechanics. Now, Everett, show us what you got here. This is something that Everett built in school this week, and it is a sculpture. Tell us a bit.
It's a flange.
Yeah, the flange is right here. It's what attaches the cardboard tube to its platform. The reason that's relevant is that Cirque Mechanics builds all kinds of really cool equipment and gadgets and all this stuff that they use in their work. Here to tell us more, here's the artistic director and the founder, Chris Lashua. Chris, you started as a performer, and I know you were working with BMX bikes for a while, and then you were working with a German wheel act for a while. The question is, how did you go from that part of your career into creating your own circus shows with your own company?
Sure. So my background was with BMX bicycles, and I was just about to hang it up, and I got a call from a friend of mine who was looking for two people to go to China to represent Ringling Brothers at a festival in Wuchao. I met one of the founders of Cirque du Soleil there, Gilles Saint-Croix, who kind of became my mentor. We hung out for 2 weeks, and he liked what I was doing, and he told me to kind of check out what they were doing. He told me about their company. I had no idea who Cirque du Soleil was, and I went home, and they had their show Nouvelle Experience was on HBO that month. And a few weeks later, I got a call from Gilles asking me if I wanted to do my BMX act in a show they were doing in Japan. So I mean, it was one of those, like, you've got 24 hours to tell me kind of things. And I was kind of thrown because it meant like taking off for 6 months. But I decided to go, and I went up to Montreal, and I trained with this group of people from all over the world. It was absolutely fascinating. And when that project finished, all of my friends from that project were going to Las Vegas to work on a show that they had. It was Nouvelle Experience, the show that I'd seen on HBO, and they were doing a 1-year run in Vegas to check out whether Las Vegas would be a viable market for Cirque du Soleil. We know how that turned out. So I ended up traveling across the country with some friends as a road trip just to come with them. They were all driving from Montreal, and they convinced me to jump in the car, and here I am, like 20 something years later, and I got pulled into the show, and as a stagehand, as a rigger. I built what we now know as a German wheel. It was a photograph somebody had showed me of this guy Jacinthe Reich, who was a French guy from the Circus School Chalon in France. So I built my own wheel with some fabricator friend of mine, and started playing around after hours. When I was after Nouvelle X had finished, I moved over to Mystère as a rigger. They didn't have a job for me as a performer, and they didn't have any kind of bicycle in their shows. So I would find myself on stage at midnight after the show would let out. I'd be rolling around till like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had amazing kind of support from all the artists, and the technical people in the show were really kind of supportive of what I was doing, and I made sure I was on stage every chance I could get, and especially when the creators, when Gilles or any of the founders would kind of come to town, I made sure I was visible and tried to convince them to put this in one of their shows. And eventually, it's a long road, but we got that show. We got that German wheel act in their show Quidam, which I toured for several years, about 5 years off and on, 3 years in North America, a couple years in Europe. And while I was doing German wheel, after a year or two of that, I started looking for a way to kind of see if I could put that wheel on a set of rollers so that I could spin, in my living room or, on a stage in a small space. Because German wheel, for those who don't know what it is, I mean, it's like anywhere from 6 to 7 foot in diameter wheel, 2 hoops that are parallel, kind of like a ladder that's curved around and joined. And you roll around and you control it, much like a set of rolling parallel bars. Drop down like a coin, flip around, and it takes a fair amount of space. It actually takes 3.25 times its diameter in length. That's the circumference of the wheel, and that tells you how long it takes for one revolution, which is like somewhere around like 21 really, but you need to rock back and forth. So you need like a 30-foot long area. So I built this set of wheels that I could put my wheel on, and I could turn inside it and do kind of acrobatics in small space. And then I geared that machine much like a pump car of the railway, and that would allow it to actually travel across the stage. So I'd be in this wheel, I'd crank a lever, and then I'd roll my body, and it would generate motion. And I geared it in such a way that I could turn 1 or 2 or 3 revolutions, and that would be much less distance than it would be if I was rolling. But what we ended up creating was this machine thing with gears and cranks and levers. And the feedback was phenomenal, from all of my friends in the circus world. And I mean, because of my mechanical background with bicycles, taking them apart and putting them back together in 20 different ways, it was something that was really kind of interesting to me. And so I kept going with that idea. We added a winch to it, so I could sit in the wheel and I could rotate, and the winch would lift and lower an aerialist. So as I would spin in the wheel, the aerialist would raise, and then when I'd spin the other direction, the aerialist would descend. We could also take that trolley device, which is on wheels with my wheel on it, and push it across the stage and create lift of the aerialist. This whole idea of creating not just a machine for circus, but a machine that would then do the work of circus, so that it would provide support for another act in a way that was interesting, and in a way that we wanted to show off and make part of the presentation. Unlike a winch or a hydraulic motor or something that is, not so interesting. Here we have these kind of manpower devices, either lifting aerialists or being pedaled to present a contortionist in a new way on a platform that would drive out and rotate around. And these kind of mechanical contraptions became the centerpiece of a show that became Birdhouse Factory, which was our first theater show.
Thanks, Chris. That's amazing. Everett, what's your question for Chris?
How do you make a Cirque Mechanics show?
How do we make a Cirque Mechanics show? Well, we have started with these contraptions, much like we did with our first show, Birdhouse Factory, which used this trolley device that would roll around with my German wheel on it. And we put that show in a factory, and we set a time and a place for that show. And then we kind of wrote a story that would stitch these kind of acts together. But we started with a device. And so that device is this mechanical contraption. So in our first, it was the German wheel device. And in the second show, when we started to think about what other machines we wanted to build and what other things we wanted to do. What do we want to do that would be interesting, that hasn't been done before, that we haven't seen before, or if it has been done, we haven't seen. So we had the idea of taking trampolines and rolling them back and forth. We thought, wow, cool, trampoline on wheels. That would be kind of cool. We haven't seen that before. And so when we started thinking about a trampoline on wheels, we thought, what kind of universe would that find a home, where we could thematically and scenically dress it so that it was either hidden, so we don't know that it is what we soon will find out that it is, or that it enhances the scene and makes it look, like a mining town, for instance. But we don't decide right away, because it's not one device; it's usually a series of devices. So we also thought we had this idea of taking a Chinese pole and hooking a cable to the top of it to a pulley over to another cable down to another Chinese pole. So basically what you'd have is Chinese poles that would tick-tock back and forth. When you push one pole down, the other one would lift up. And that connectedness, the rigging that connects these poles, is another kind of illustration of the idea of doing something with an apparatus that affects another performer or another part of that apparatus. And so now we have this idea of poles, we have these rolling trampolines, and then we built this crane contraption, which was essentially, it's a 20-foot long I-beam with a bicycle suspended underneath it with a gear that would allow that bicycle to pedal back and forth along the length of this I-beam. Out on the end over here, we had a pulley with a rope going down to a trapeze. So we have that connectedness. When this bicycle would pedal back, we'd have the trapeze lift up and down, and the bicycle would go forward and the trapeze would go down. And then this entire I-beam, which is 20 feet long, was on a big round bearing, and 2 people on either side of the stage would pull a rope and spin that crane around and fling the aerialist around. And the idea here was to create something that would address one of the things that we didn't like about being in theaters, which is we don't get to be in the audience enough. So we built this device that would allow us to kind of spin the aerialists out over the edge of the stage and then bring them back in again, to create a little bit more of a circus feeling. And so these 3 devices were kind of cooking, and we started to think more about them. We thought, where would they fit? What kind of a home could we put them in? And we thought of places like a dockyard, a shipyard, train station. Maybe they could unload baggage from a railway cars. And the idea, right, is because now we have these things that roll. We thought, okay, those should be on some kind of train track. So that meant some kind of shipyard, maybe a dockyard, maybe unloading a boat or something like that. Maybe a rail car, a train station. And then the idea about mining was kind of cool. Okay, these carts that would roll in and out of the gold mines. And then once we decided that seemed like a pretty cool thing, like, wow, this gold mining, there's some kind of energy there. So we started thinking about the time periods for gold mining, and in the modern day, big mechanical, big machine, industrial mining isn't so interesting. So we went back to, back to the time of prospectors and dynamite and thinking about things that would make a fun show. So something that would be thematic, that we could know when we look at it, we go like, oh, we're someplace where there's rocks and a mine shaft and some train tracks with these 4 carts that are bringing gold out. We know when the curtain opens, when we see that, we kind of know what we're looking at because we're doing nonverbal theater. You know what that is, Everett? Nonverbal theater? No? Yeah. So nonverbal theater is theater where we don't speak, we don't talk, right? So that means that we have to get a lot of information to the audience visually, right? When they look at it, they need to go, oh, they're in a gold mining town, right? Because 2 things. One, we don't use our words, and for many of us circus people who aren't actors, even if we did, less is better. So we want to communicate as much as we can non-verbally, without words, visually, right? And so we thought, wow, this idea of a gold mining town, there's some energy there. There's some zing to the wacky guy that's running around with a stick of dynamite wanting to blow stuff up. And that's kind of interesting.
One of the things that I love about what you guys do is not only the machinery, the gadgets, the apparatus that you guys create, but then how you join that type of large-scale machinery with really intimate and human, sometimes funny, sometimes dramatic moments with the performers.
We are looking for those kind of threads. And once we have it, so for instance, our 3rd project, which was called Pedal Punk, which is a show that we set in a kind of steampunk-esque bike shop, and it's it's industrial, and there's a big pedal-driven truss structure, which is the kind of environment, and it supports our rigging and hangs bicycles from it and platforms, but it frames a bike mechanics work stand. And our main character in that show, Jan Dam, who's a physical acrobat, kind of physical comedy kind of person, really good with his body movements and kind of mind skills, and a great Diablo artist. We brought him into the project early on. We knew, okay, we're going to work with Jan on this thing. He's going to be our bike mechanic. He's going to be our central guy. And Steve would kind of come up with a setting for, okay, we're in a bike shop. What's going on in the bike shop? I mean, that's pretty, maybe it's interesting, but we need more. So the idea is that Jan is this bike mechanic, and the little bell would twinkle in the wings, and the door would open, and we don't see that part, but then these people walk in, and they're his customers, and he has some interaction with them, and that interaction results in an act or not, and then they leave, and then somebody else comes. So we had this idea that Jan, our bike mechanic, would have this precious, bright blue, sparkling bicycle that would be his piece. That in between the acts, he would be working on that special bicycle. And we would know it's special because he would be polishing it, and somebody would try to touch it, and he would push them away. And at one point he leaves, and the shop boy decides to take the bicycle down, and he does his BMX act on that. Jan comes back at the end, sees this guy spinning around like crazy, getting all this applause on his precious bike, and he walks up to him like, what are you doing? He takes the bike away, and he hands him the broom, stomps off. And that's intermission. We come back, after intermission, dark, and we hear bang, 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 and the lights come up. And now the bike mechanic has the blue bicycle on a bike stand, and he's got wheels on it that are square. He's hammering, and he's making these round wheels square. So now we have this bicycle that's got square wheels on it. And he turns to the shop boy and he takes it off the rack and he slams it on the floor and he laughs at him and takes off and he says, "Here, have fun with that," you know? And so now we have the bike mechanic who believes that he has just showed his lackey he will not mess with him, you know, and Blake looks down at this BMX bike and tries to ride it. And of course, that's square wheels, so he has to pick it up and walk off the stage. And then as a transition later, we have a moment where Blake comes out and he tries to get these two guys to help him clunk, clunk along the stage. Of course, that doesn't work either. And then at the end of the show, after this big kind of acrobatic finale, the cast members bring this track out, and right at the end, we have this exchange with Jan, the bike mechanic, and Blake, where Blake says, "Watch this," and he rides that square wheel bicycle across the stage. Big triumphal moment. So that, in that way, we were able to kind of find some way to have this happy thing exist for a reason. Why? I mean, yeah, I love showing off the toys, but we have to hopefully have some kind of setting for them that makes sense, that's interesting. And what really makes it sing is when the other kind of creative team members write with someone in mind. So Steve had Jan in mind. So he had his skill set in mind. He said, "You know what? Like, I know he's got mime skills." Steve was trying to think of a clown number, an audience participation number. It's kind of one of the things that we gave to him as a task list, like, "Hey, it's going to be this, and we'd like this kind of act, and we need these pieces." And so he would kind of go away and come back. And he came to me on the first day of rehearsals for Pedal Punk, and he said, "Hey, would you mind, can you take an exercise bike on the road? You got room for it in the truck?" And I was like, "Of course, yeah." So he said, "2?" And I said, "Sure, 2 exercise bikes? Okay, fine, sure." He said, "Okay, give me an hour, and then I want to show you something." So he went off with Jan in rehearsals, you know, and because we even though we start these shows a year in advance, we actually only get our artists together for about 3 weeks in the same place. And so he goes off with Jan, and an hour later or something in between rehearsals, "Okay, I want to show you this." So he showed me this audience participation piece where Jan would pull someone out of the audience, and he would, you know, interact with them for a little while and get them comfortable. And then he'd have Blake, his sidekick, the BMX guy, bring out this exercise bike, and he'd put the audience member on there. And he'd have the guy pedal it, and then he'd bring out another bike, and he'd set it up behind them. And then we kind of see there's 2 bicycles lined up on stage. And then he would have Blake, his assistant, you know, wave a green rag, and it would be a sound effect, and the race is on. And that race, the bicycle race between Jan and the audience member, where at the end the audience member is triumphant and wins, but that premise for a bicycle race really was kind of designed with Jan's skill set in mind. Okay, you know, he's going to be able to like fall down when he's chasing the bike, and fall down and do this thing where he's getting dragged by the bicycle, and it makes it kind of a funny piece, and it really sells the physical comedy aspect of that. And also the idea of a bicycle race set in a bicycle shop where the bike mechanic, who we've come to kind of relate with, ends up being the guy facilitating that. That was just kind of a nice, really nice thing. But it's not just that. It's also, you know, that then that person embraces it. You know, then someone like Jan really goes like, "This is great," you know, and many artists, you know, most of us don't have all of these skills that it takes to be, you know, great in a circus show. You know, I mean, we as audience members, we go see a circus show, and we'll watch the show, and at the end we'll be like, you know, minds blown. That cast, they all do everything. And of course, they all don't do everything. We think they do. We think they're all doing double backflips. But actually, there's one guy that does the double back, and then there's one girl that does the, you know, the backflip with the twist, and then there's this person that does that, and they all have their own skills. And that translates not just in terms of acrobatics, but also in terms of like communicating with an audience member or clowning. And so Jan would bring his own unique skills to this and really embrace it and make it his own. And that process continues over a long period of time to make it stronger, to make it better, to make it funnier.
So now I'm going to ask the classic question. Everett, what did you think about Jan and the bicycle race?
It was super funny.
It was very super funny.
Go ahead again. What did you think of the bicycle race, Everett?
Super, super, super funny.
Super funny. All right, good. That was 4 supers, I think.
These 4 supers got to be in there.
Right on.
Thank you, Chris, for doing this. This is amazing. A great look into your process, into Cirque Mechanics, everything you guys do. We are super, super, super fans. We go every time you guys are in New York City, so we can't wait eventually for the next live Mechanics show.
We all can't wait to get back doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Yes, absolutely. All right, thank you, Chris.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Everett.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you to Cirque Mechanics. Everett, what'd you think about that?
Super, super, super cool.
I agree. That was really super, super, super cool. A word now from Circus Talk. They have been so amazing about actually sharing these videos with the world. And Circus Talk, you can now actually post an event on Circus Talk today. And when you do that, you can have it as a live stream or an on-demand show, and you can actually sell tickets to it. So that's one thing to know. The second thing to know, Everett, if you want to join Circus Talk as a pro member, they have an amazing discount, 60% off. The code is COVID-19 yearly. And guess what, Everett?
What?
We're going to go get ready for the next episode of Move It. You know what it's going to be?
What?
Part 2 of the Big Apple Circus.
Woo!
Oh, that's right. Bye, everybody. Say bye.
Bye.